The views expressed on this program are those of the commenters alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of Valley News Live, our parent company, or our advertisers.
Welcome back tonight in the Hot Box live from St. Paul. Representative Paul Marquart. Paul, thanks so much for being with me tonight via Skype. I want to jump right in here. Today, the President Barack Obama in Minneapolis talking about stricter gun laws, trying to minimize, lower gun violence. First question, do you believe that stricter gun laws is the answer to lower gun violence?
You know, I have not been convinced of that. I do think the debate is good. You know, the president is here. He's the leader of our nation. This has been a big issue that he's concerned about. But I really think when we look at this, we have to talk about everything. And I think the biggest difference would be made in looking at mental health issues. I think that's the area you really have to focus on. And a lot of the measures that I have seen down here in St. Paul, bills that have been introduced as far as gun control, I just don't see the evidence in really stopping some of the things we want to do and in making our schools safer.
Paul, if you're here right now, I'd be shaking your hand, so I'm shaking it via Skype. Thank you for being that frank. I know that obviously you're a Democrat. It's easy to sign off on the president's what his ideas are. But here's what really shocked me is this. If you look at empirical evidence, like you and I were just visiting about, and you look at gun violence across the country, you've got Chicago, Washington, D.C., some of the stricter gun laws, also cities with 250,000 people or more, and it's typically in the more poverty-stricken areas. What I'm kind of upset about is here's President Barack Obama in Minneapolis today talking about lowering gun violence, but not a word about job creation, not a word about the economy. Would you agree with me that, hey, when people are employed, the economy is good, there's less gun violence in these areas?
Well, I don't think that's fair. I mean, the president has worked very hard in trying to get the nation's economy going again. I think the statistics show that we're on pretty good economic growth. I mean, he was here in Minnesota today to talk about an issue he feels very passionate about, and I commend him for that. My view is that I don't think a lot of the measures that deal with gun control are going to make our schools safer. And I think it's the mental health issues that are important. A normal person does not go into a school and shoot children. And so, I mean, think that's where we really have to address things, the mental health aspect, and how can we make schools safer? And I'm not just convinced that dealing with gun control is the way to necessarily get there.
So let's talk about making schools safer. You are the chair now of the Education and Finance Committee. By the way, congratulations on that. Great honor to be a part of that. So being in that position, would you propose a bill or sign off on having a security resource officer at every school in Minnesota?
You know, I think that's up to each school. And I would leave that up to each school, and I would not stop that. In fact, I think having school resource officers in schools is really a good thing. I think it connects with students. And, you know, you look at a lot of our gun crime is related to gang activity. And I think having an officer, resource officer in those schools help combat gang activities. But I've talked to a number of school districts, for example, that are looking at maybe changing entrances to schools or their windows or having new security systems. And we need to see if there's some way in which, as a state, we can help provide the resources to do that.
I want to move on and talk a little bit more about education. Governor Dayton doing some funding things, obviously, with his proposed budget for education in Minnesota. You being the chair of the Finance Committee, what's the single most important thing? Also, you're a teacher. Single most important thing you're going to focus on this session to increase and improve student performance in Minnesota schools?
You know, we know what works, and we have heard tons of evidence on early childhood programs, all-day kindergarten, and we know that those programs are successful, they work, they pay themselves back several times and increase graduation rates, increase performance rates, lower incarceration rates into the future. So we're going to be focusing on those type of programs that have a proven track record, a data-proven track record of increasing results and lowering the achievement gap. We're beyond the point now where we just plop dollars onto the formula. We have to make sure that every single dollar that goes into education is giving our communities and residents and our students a better value. So it's going to be a little different approach, but if we can spend $1, it has to go into early childhood education and all-day kindergarten. That's where you get the big results per dollar.
So let me ask you this. Do you agree with Governor Dayton's education proposal in his budget. And what he did was this: he took $240 million towards higher ed and only $92 million to the sort of pre-kindergarten, kindergarten education. Shouldn't that be reversed with what you just said?
You know, overall, the education, early ed through 12 is about $344 million. And as you said, about $250 million into higher ed. It's all related. I think it's a good start. I would like to see more than the governor did, of course, in early childhood education. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done. But at the same token, higher education is that final part of our educational process. And if we want to create the world's best workforce in the next 15 years, it has to be all the way from early childhood all the way through higher education. So, that's going to be the key. Again,
shouldn't that then be reversed? And here's my point, Paul. If you do your research, from 0 to 5 years old, 90% of the brain is developed from 0 to 5. Are we missing the mark by only putting $92 into that age group versus the $240 into college students? Why not invest more in that early period? And one thing I'd like to see happen is some sort of tax break. If I'm a mom or a dad and I want to stay home with my kids from 0 to 5, I get some sort of tax break, tax incentive, and help teach my kids in that critical time frame. Is that a possibility?
Well, I agree. We need to do more. We need to put more dollars and resources into early childhood years. And one approach we're looking at would be a scholarship where a parent would have up to about $6,000 to be able to send their child to a preschool child care setting that has been rated as high, which means it's going to properly prepare. So it's giving the parent the choice to go out and find a high quality child care area. And I think that's the way we do it. We can drive the market, we can improve child care facilities and education, and also provide flexibility for parents. And so I agree, those are where the dollars have to be invested.
But would you sign off on some sort of bill that would say, hey, here's a tax incentive for parents that want to stay home with their kids?
I don't know. I'd have to look. We've got to
wait, Paul, let me interrupt you, sir. Hold on one second. Because why in the world, and I asked Governor Dalrymple the same question, why is it better to send a kid to preschool rather than have him be with his parents? I don't understand this.
Well, I mean, it starts early on, and not just when we get to preschool. It starts right away after birth. I mean, we have to make, first of all, the first responsibility certainly is the parent. They have the potential to do the best job of educating our students. And no, I mean, it would be something I would need to look at, but I want to make sure that we're getting it to the kids who need it the most. And the bottom line is they get them prepared for kindergarten and school on forward. And how we do that, I'm open to almost anything, including what you just mentioned. If that would get us there, I could certainly support a tax credit.
Paul, always great to have you on the show. Again, congratulations on being the chair of the Education Finance Committee. I know we'll have you back on a bunch more. Keep up the great work. Stay with us. Coming up in just a moment, the best and the worst of the Super Bowl commercials. Can't wait to hear from you. Again, go to our website, 630pov.com. Appreciate your feedback.